Hi. Hello, welcome everyone.
Great, exciting.
Hi, my name is Floor. I'm the today's guest interviewer on behalf of Donate for Refugees. And today I'm going to talk with Monica Wagner she's the founder of Connection Hub in Lesbos. And welcome, Monica. Thank you for joining us today. And
Thank you for the
if you have
invitation.
any questions for Monica, you can just type them in the comments. And at the end of the interview, we will try to answer all your questions. So, welcome again, Monica. And maybe you can shortly introduce yourself and Connection Hub, what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Monica Wagner. I'm the founder and also the executive director of Connection Hub. And what we do, so we're here on Lesbos and we have a connection up here. It's a pilot project. And this connection hub, what we do is we give refugees and asylum seekers, so displaced people, access to high quality education. And mainly for them to have the opportunity to develop skills that are going to help them to improve, obviously, the situation that they're facing here now, and also to help them to acquire relevant skills that could help them potentially to integrate and to start livelihood projects. Yeah.
Thank you. So, COVID-19 changed the life of refugees a lot on Lesbos. They're in lockdown since March. What are the recent changes and how's the situation now on Lesbos for people there?
So this year, 2020, is obviously challenging for everyone, but especially for refugees on Lesbos. So lockdown has been in place since March this year. Initially, it was for the entire population. So it was for the Greek population, but obviously also the refugee population, so people from Moria. And so, of course, being in quarantine or being in lockdown is very challenging because it's something that most of us have never experienced, to be confined in your own place. But it's especially difficult for refugees who, as we know, are confined in what we consider and what is an inhuman living space. So we know that Moria is absolutely congested. So we have now the numbers are, I think, 13,000 in March. I'm not sure, it was probably 15, 16, 17,000. So imagine 17,000 people being confined or in quarantine in a place that is just for 2,800 people. So, a lot of
Without
people assume
any facilities and
with very limited
hands.
facilities, yes.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think that the refugee population is a very idle population or is just sitting around and waiting for something to happen. But the refugee population is actually very active. So there's a lot of stuff happening, a lot of grassroots initiatives by refugees, shops, people coming up with solutions to their own challenges. But with what we have seen with lockdown and with quarantine is that a lot of these initiatives of refugees trying to make their living conditions just a little bit more human, so a lot of self-initiative has also been pushed down and stopped. So since March, we have seen a lot of schools, refugee schools run by refugees, being policed, being stopped, classes had to be reduced.
Can they still leave
People,
the camp to go to school or do some grocery shopping or
so one thing is obviously to talk about what's happening in the camp, and then one thing is to talk about Moria within the bigger landscape of the island. So from March, what we've seen is a restriction on initiatives, a lot of policing of initiatives run by refugees, but also a lot of policing and reduction of services by humanitarian organizations. And just to answer your question, yes, so movement of people has been restricted. So people were stopped and asked to return if they had an appointment or needed to go somewhere. If they didn't have the right paperwork, which sometimes people don't know what is the right paperwork because of a lack of communication, we're not able to see essential services like a lawyer or to see to access medical services. They were asked to return to go back. So these were the challenges that we've been seeing since March. However, saying that there was still some opportunity for people to start going to the city center and access essential services by getting police papers or movement permits. And by having permits, they can go into a bus, take the journey. The bus is being stopped. They have to go out. They can present it, and then the police officer will let them go into the city center. However, for many people who don't have these, didn't get the police permission or the movement paper, they were not able to access the services. But so yes, these were the challenges that we were facing.
Many of them are locked up in the camp all day and night.
So yes, so there has been greater restriction on movement due to the lockdown, and more initiatives run by refugees have been pushed down and closed down, and also more initiatives by the humanitarian community, grassroots community, has also been pushed down and stopped, suspended. So this is what we've observed.
How did it affect the services you offer for the refugees in Moria?
So we are a startup. So because I was just talking a little bit about the trend in March, April, May. But we, as a Connection Hub, we emerged actually roughly 6 weeks ago. And we emerged when the lockdown was gradually kind of lifted, and we also saw, so in Mytilene, services that were opening up, refugees living in Mytilene were moving around and being able to access services. People in Moria camp also, it was easier for them to get the movement permission to come into the center. So it was a great time for us to start. Well, obviously it's 2020 is not really a great time to start anything new, but it was just within the context, it was okay to start because we saw people started moving around more. People from Moria were able to access our services, education services. But that was until now, until this week. So we were positive. We thought, okay, maybe there will be, the movement restriction will be gradually also lifted for the refugees, and we will see a lot more movement. But unfortunately, what we were fearing for a very, very long time has happened, and cases of COVID have been reported in Moria camp this week. So now we are back to extreme lockdown and extreme movement restriction. Yeah.
Okay, but there's still people coming to the Connection Hub, and you're offering things online.
So extreme movement restriction means that for Connection Hub, half of our students are living in Moria camp, roughly half of students. With this new, or not new, but recurring extreme restriction, movement restriction, many of our students cannot access our services, but we still have students living in Mytilene, which is the city center, who are not subjected to this extreme movement restriction, who can access the Connection Hub and access our services, yes.
Okay. And what are your plans for the future with Connection Hub? What do you want to achieve?
Well, at first, what we are right now, actually, what we want to achieve maybe is we're testing a model. So our model is blended learning. So we are offering online plus offline learning. And we came up with this model that we're still testing and we're still molding, because obviously we're working in a very volatile climate.
Yes.
And we have to be very agile and receptive to changes in the environment. We're constantly molding ourselves. But maybe I would just talk a little bit about the model, how the model emerged, and what challenges we're facing now, and how we think we're going to move forward a little bit more for the audience as well, just to understand, because I feel like
Okay.
maybe I need to explain this a little bit better. So as I said, our model is a blended learning model. So we're offering online learning plus offline learning. And when I say online learning, we have partnerships with course providers, with universities, mainly in the UK, because we're a UK registered organization. And so our students come to the Connection Hub, and upon registration, we ask them, what is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to achieve? What challenges are you facing now? What gaps do you want to close in your education or professional pathway? So if people come to the hub, we don't just see them as refugees, we see them as people, as holistic as a full human being in the making, and somebody
as a student. You see them as a student, just a regular student.
We see them as, yes, we see them as a student, and we see them also as people who have a history, people who were doing something before they are now refugees. And so
that's wonderful.
We embrace different parts of their identity as well, not just the refugee identity. And so what does that mean? So if somebody comes here and they said, okay, in Syria, I was a civil engineer, and I'm actually still very passionate about this, and I would like to continue this path. Is there anything that you can do? Is there anything that you have on offer? I haven't been in education for 7 years, and I fear that I will forget everything I've learned. So this is one of the stories. This is usually what we hear. And what we do by having this, the partnerships that we have with course providers and universities, we can give students a choice of courses. And currently we're offering more short-term courses, just because we understand that people have been out of education for a very, very long time.
Yes.
And a lot of them have to get just back into the routine of studying, of being focused for a very long time.
Can you give some examples of the courses you offer?
So we offer, it could be, well, we're offering like data science courses, we offer business, we offer digital manufacturing, we offer psychology courses, so positive psychology, or understanding addictions, marketing. So mainly we offer these courses because we've received a lot of feedback from the refugee population that these are the courses they're interested in. And how we work is, as I said, because we have these partnerships, we can offer people a lot of courses. But when we get feedback, we put people into a group. So we create study groups. And then when we have a study group, so we have more than 5 to 7 people, of course, because of COVID restrictions on how many people can be in a room. We find that's the online, so people say they want to do something, so we find the online courses that are relevant for them, and then we put them in a study group, and then we find an offline learning facilitator, and also each student gets a mentor. So that's the connected part. What is it that you want to do? Who do you want to become? Regardless of if you get asylum or not, this is something you can control. This is within your control. Your personal development, and we will help you, whatever it is we can do. We will try to do it for you.
That's great.
And then, and
it's an online mentor.
So the online part is the studying on the course, and then the offline part is the learning facilitator. So we are looking for people in the refugee community who have experience and who are accessible, so they are not subject to like, obviously restrictions right? That we can engage, but also we're engaging the volunteer community here. And something that we still want to do is to engage in a conversation with the Ministry of Education, the local universities here, and obviously the Greek community.
That's good. Yeah.
And and the mentoring is virtual. So the mentoring, the one-to-one interaction, the one-to-one matchmaking with the student and the body, that's virtual. So each student gets study group, offline learning facilitation, and the mentoring.
Yeah. Sounds good.
So this is where we are now, and yes, and where we want to go is, so by engaging students with these short courses, so to just get them back on track, boost their confidence, you can do it. It's about learning, and you can learn, and you can be more. You're more than just a refugee. It's not your main identity. When you're in a connection hub, we see you as more.
Yeah, to give them a new start for the future.
Yeah, and then once we see that there are some students who are very eager, very engaged, as I said, we have these partnerships with the universities, and we have exciting opportunities for like scholarships for university credits, master's program, and that would be the next step. But the first step is engage again in education and see this as an opportunity for you to develop yourself and to feel like you're in control in an environment where it seems like no one really knows what's going on.
Okay, that sounds good. And is there anything specific you're doing right now as a response to the COVID-19 outbreak? Any specific courses you offer?
So initially the idea of Connection Hub emerged actually in December when I was here the first time, and I ran a focus group, which was needs. We did like a needs analysis to identify what is it that the refugee community wants, what is not available, and how can we serve them. So this is where the education project emerged. Initially, we wanted to do this in integration project, so help people to gain skills that would be relevant if they get asylum and they have to then move on. But also if something happens and they had to go somewhere else, that they still had skills that could help them set up, do something when they are back or somewhere else. Now, being here, of course, we can't ignore what is going on right now. We're in a pandemic. There are a lot of challenges, medical challenges, legal challenges that we're facing because the regulations are changing. There's a lot of firefighting going on. And as an organization, as a startup, we were like, okay, what can we do to support essential services and how can we support in the firefighting? So we decided, after obviously liaising with community leaders, with other NGOs, and really having a lot of discussions, I identified where we can come in as a startup and support as an education provider, or support medical translators and legal translators, build the capacity, right? So we'll give them access to high quality training in human anatomy, physiology, intercultural communication, and conflict resolution, but also human rights and protection. So to build their knowledge base, the vocabulary, so that because they're like they're stakeholders, they're people out there in the front line engaging with the wider refugee community, and they have access where we don't have access. So if we build their capacity, we can see a much larger impact. So we decided if we do something, the best place for us to get in as a startup and being part of the firefighting here. So yeah, so we have the firefighting, and we have the integration and development.
Yes, it sounds good. And well, you're on the islands, ready for almost a year, I think. But is there someone you met, a story you heard, something you want to share with us that really made a deep impression to you?
So as I said, if somebody walks through the door here, we don't see them as just being part of a mass. We see every person as an individual. We listen to every person. I'm the head coach here. So I have intensive or yeah, I guess intensive conversations with every person who walks through the door. So I sit down, I find out what they want, and I try to see how we can support them. And a lot of inspiring stories. And as I said, like this one case of a civil engineer from Syria who couldn't finish his degree. So he studied for 2 years. So he's like as an assistant civil engineer. And he's just extremely eager to continue his education, to learn. He really wants to learn. He's actually a medical translator, so he's on a one of our medical programs. And just seeing him coming here at 8 o'clock in the morning before work, to sit down to study, to really try to understand and try to be able to serve the community here a lot more, and wanting to learn and wanting to be more than what people consider him here just to be. These are the stories that are obviously very touching. And before the extreme lockdown, which is now in place since this week, we also had students from Moria camp just being so eager to come to the Connection Hub and to access the education, and they would walk in the burning sun to come and to be part of the offline seminar to access the courses. So we see that there's people really want to learn, they really want to improve, and that's why we're here, because people wanted it, they needed it. So yeah.
Thank you for that. Yes. So I think we're coming to the end almost of the interview, but is there anything else you want to share with us?
So that was really quick. Oh my god. So it's my first live interview, and I was like, oh my god, I'm freaking out.
You're gonna be fine.
So we see ourselves as a movement. So I don't know if anyone had the opportunity to check our website. If not, please do it. Check connectionhub.org.uk. So we are part of a movement. So we want to engage a lot of people, connect people across the world to the crisis. So to connect people in the crisis to people in the world, because we know that we have the biggest challenges here are obviously resources, and there's always too little resources for too many people. So our model is how can we solve that, and that is by using technology to connect people and to engage people in the UK, Germany, wherever, to be part of the struggle here for humanity and for human rights. So as Connection Hub, what we're doing is we have something called Students Without Borders. So if you're a student or a recent graduate and you want to get involved, but you don't want to come to the front line, you can contact us. We have a lot of opportunities for people to get involved in program development. As mentors, maybe you want to support a refugee displaced student to be successful at their studies. That's an opportunity as well.
Yes. So we can all join.
You can all join. Well, you have to be ambitious and talented, right? But, and also what we do is we have actually 3 things. I just want to quickly say that. So that's Student Without Borders. Then we have the CH Associate. So if you're a professional with significant experience and you feel like you could be able to coach a group of students who are, for instance, doing something on geopolitics, of course, or on human rights, humanitarian law, please also get involved, because we're looking for virtual facilitators as well as a backup. And then, of course, if you have financial resources and you want to support us, you can also do that. We are always looking for funds to continue the work that we're doing.
Perfect. We'll leave a link to the website in the comments so that everyone can find the website. Yes. Are there any questions from? I don't see any questions yet in the comments. So if you have any questions and you're listening and watching now, you can type a question in the comments. And I
Is
think
it
that
a good
works.
sign or bad sign?
Well,
No
you told us
questions,
a
I don't
lot.
know.
You explained a lot about everything you do, so that's
We
great.
only had 30 minutes what to talk
Yeah,
about.
it's almost 30 minutes. So I don't see any questions yet. So is there a final thing you want to add, Monica?
So there's a lot actually more that I want to say. So if anybody wants to engage in a conversation, because it's a very complex situation down here. What we're seeing as well, people being removed to the main, or evacuated or removed to the mainland. So we have another crisis happening on the mainland. We have a humanitarian and we have an integration crisis here. So if anybody wants to get involved in a deeper conversation with me, because we are very collaborative, we depend on partnerships. We can't do this alone. Feel free to contact me, and really looking forward to engage in exciting conversations to be able to support the people here. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for everything you do on the island. And if there's any questions, you can always send them to Monica. We put a link to the website in the comments. Thank you for watching.